Hello everyone, this is Sam Legion and welcome back to another comparison. Two brand new vehicles for 2021. On my left side we have the 2021 Hyundai Santa Fe with the Ultimate Calligraphy package. And on my right side we have the 2021 Kia Sorento SX. And for this year, both these vehicles have received a new design, new interior, and of course, new exterior, and also brand new engines. And today, we're going to find out the question that you guys have asked me for a while. What's the difference and which one is the best out of these two? I will say this though, it's a very confusing decision to pick between these two vehicles. For the only reason, they come from the same brand technically, and underneath they're almost the same. And it's very confusing for customers to try to figure out why should they pick this over that or vice versa. And I'm with you on that. It's very confusing at this point. But here's what you need to know. Most importantly, these two cars will offer you almost the exact same technology and almost the same engines. The disappointing part, the way I see this too, is the fact that the base model for this is almost the price of the Kia Sorento. It's very confusing. And the Sorento offers you 3 rows, unlike this. Since the Palisade came out, the Santa Fe does not offer a 3rd row anymore, unlike the previous generations. Now the Sorento offers a 3rd row. In total, with this package, we have 6 seats, 2 in the front, 2 in the middle, and 2 in the back. We have a 5-seater on this side. Special thanks for this video goes to our good friends at Aurora Hyundai, a Hyundai dealership located in Aurora, Ontario, Canada. If you want to know more about them, and just because you're watching this video, you can get a promo or a discount on any of their vehicles by following the link in the description below. Now, let's talk about this too. First of all, let's talk about design. One is more luxurious, a bit more fancy, I would say, curvy at the same time. Very different design from this here. The headlights resemble a little bit the Hyundai Palisade, of course, with that shape all the way through, and then the massive grille all the way in the front. And as you can see, the actual turning signals. On this side, we have a more boxy vehicle, more square style. The grille itself resembles very much like a square, boxy design. Same thing with the headlights. A more aggressive style, more sporty in my opinion. On this side, it's a bit more settled, more fancy. But at the end of the day, you need to pick it either or. And for me, I must say, the Kia Sorento looks pretty badass. It looks really good on the outside, and specifically with this color, in my opinion, it looks really, really good. I'm not saying that this in any ways is ugly. It just doesn't really call me, like it just doesn't feel like it's something that I would pick over it. Again, a very different preference. You might have a different idea. The next thing you need to know is, of course, dimensions. The Sorento is bigger than this. It is actually longer than the Santa Fe, which is why it gives you a 3rd row. Now, the beautiful thing is that the Sorento also comes with an X-Line package for off-road. It is 1 inch higher off the ground, 8.3 inches, of course, compared to a standard Sorento, and it offers the exact same engine as this one. The next thing you need to know, the engine options. One thing I noticed after opening the hood for both sides is the fact that this doesn't have an actual shock to lift the hood itself. This has 2, 1 on each side. Easy access. On this side, we only have a standard old-fashioned way. But it doesn't matter much. What matters is what they offer on the hood. If you actually look at them side by side, even the cover, it's exactly the same in both vehicles. You can tell that it says a turbo over there, turbo over here. The difference is that this over here makes 277 horsepower, meanwhile the Sorento makes 281. So they sort of detuned this to make less horsepower. What you need to know is that they both offer the exact same transmission. It is a dual clutch transmission. They use all-wheel drive system, H-track. So they're very, very similar there. We're gonna find out once I take them for a test drive to see if that power difference is noticeable. The next thing you need to know is the fact that the Santa Fe has received the park in and park out option. So as you can see from the key fob, very similar to the Sonata, to the Genesis and so on. The Kia on this side did not receive that feature, something to keep in mind. The rear end of the Santa Fe has received, of course, a fresh new design. We have more aggressive tail lights. The actual turning signal is moved at the bottom. And of course, if you want to watch a comparison between the old generation and the new one, I have done a video on the Santa Fe, the new model. Most importantly, let's talk about in here. Both have power lift gates. The Santa Fe, though, as I said previously, doesn't have a third row. So that means you get more space in here. Now, some people maybe want to get that third row option. Unfortunately, it's not offered with this. So the only option left, if you're looking for a third row, is the Kia Sorento. But since the Santa Fe doesn't have a third row, you get more space underneath to use. So technically, this one, even without the third row, actually has more space in the back compared to the Sorento. Don't get too excited about that third row, because behind the third row, there's not much space in here. As you can see, my bag, actually, I have to push it further or flip it in order to close it, because there's literally no space. There's about 12 or 13 cubic feet of space. But then if you want to, of course, you can just fold both seats and you got yourself a lot of space in there, but you don't get any space underneath. That's the difference. The other thing is that the Sorento offers a climate unit behind the second row for the third row passenger, and it does offer quite a lot of cup holders compared to the Santa Fe. And they both have powered second row, so you can fold them through the buttons located onto the side over here for easy access. If you needed more space, you can just press the buttons on the side. Both offer the exact same feature. Now, when it comes to the second row, both offer very similar features as well. The difference is that in here you got captain chairs for the second row. More comfort, of course, and you get some extra space in the center. Both have USB ports, 115 volts. You can charge your laptop, plug anything in there with that kind of power. The difference in the back is that the Kia Sorento offers a ton of cup holders, and you have this little side nets on the side on the seats. Put your phone, you can slide your phone right in. Very smart of Kia. Both have heated seats for the seats in the back, of course, and they both have a full panoramic roof across. So very similar things in there. And of course the vents in the center and the USB ports onto the side on the seat. So when it comes to technology and features, they're very similar in the back. The difference is that in here you get captain chairs. Now let's talk about technology features. One thing you'll notice is the fact that this vehicle, the Santa Fe, is very similar to the Palisade. It shares quite a lot with it. The center console is almost the same. The position, it's almost the same. The steering wheel, the cluster, and so on. Meanwhile, the Kia Sorento doesn't share a lot of design features with the Telluride, in my opinion. It's totally different. This has been inspired by the Hyundai Palisade. Now, let's talk about features they have in common. Both have digital screens, both have heads-up display, both have the exact same adaptive cruise control, both have heated seats, ventilated seats, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, wireless connectivity, wireless charging pad right in the center for the Santa Fe, USB ports. You have, of course, cup holders in the center, armrest, and so on. 360 camera. Both have digital screens. Both have the exact same infotainment system. Both share quite a lot of features between each other. So the difference in there depends on the package, may not be very different. So that's something to keep in mind. The only thing that you're missing in the Santa Fe is the fact that it doesn't have an X-Line package for off-road. But you get the calligraphy, which is the one that we have for today's video, with a lot of features. And you get to pay less for a second trim if you don't want to get the calligraphy, and you get quite a lot of features as well. So that is the difference. Everything else in here remains very much the same. So you're not going to get more features on one compared to the other one. Like, the only difference in here is the fact that it offers that remote park in and park out, but everything else remains very much the same. Which one do I like on the interior? I kind of like the Hyundai Santa Fe on the interior. I just find this to be better and useful. The only thing that annoys me about this is the fact that it doesn't have a gear knob. I like the gear knob in the Sorento. This has the buttons exactly the same as the Palisade. But everything else in here, I feel like I like this a bit more. Now, the next question is, how do they drive? Which one drives better? Which one feels faster? Which one feels more comfortable? That's what we're gonna do next. So, let's go for a drive. Okay, so let's go for a drive and let's talk about this. First of all, both have power seats on each side and they both have the leg extender. Sorry, it's so cold my mouth is actually frozen, I can barely say any word. Both have paddle shifters. Let's put it into drive mode. I'm not the biggest fan of, it's actually so cold that the brakes, they kind of seize for a moment because of the low temperature. Most importantly, as I said, one of the biggest things I hate about this car is this part here. I don't find it as useful. I like the shift knob, it's quicker. This is just a bit annoying. That's the only thing. The other thing I noticed with this right off the bat, I got in, it kind of feels a bit smaller on the driver's side and a bit higher off the ground. I have it all the way to the bottom, but it doesn't go further than that. So that's one of my things, to annoying parts, to let you know about this. Steering is actually lighter here. Let's put it in sport mode and maybe it changes. Here we go, sport mode. Oh, gotta love these new engines. They're pretty good. 277 horsepower. It revs a bit high. Push it and it just kind of revs high a little bit. I don't hear the engine here as much as I do in this Sorento. And the vehicle is actually quieter inside. Unfortunately, I can't do a cabin noise test because it's windy. And the problem with windy days is that in certain areas there is wind, and in certain areas there is no wind. And it's not a fair comparison because then the machine picks certain areas. So one can be high, too low, just not the perfect comparison. But I can tell you right now, after driving that multiple times and this, I think this actually feels slightly quieter inside compared to the Kia Sorento. The driver assistant package, it's very much the same in both vehicles. You have in here, put HTA, there we go, set the speed, and then the gap assist as well. There we go. Set the speed, gap assist as well. It literally looks exactly the same for me in both vehicles. You can't tell the difference much, but they do the job fine. They do actually a better job compared to some other vehicles. For example, the Mazdas, they don't have the best cruise control. They're okay, but these things are pretty good and very accurate, will keep you in the lanes. It's even working in sport mode, so that just gives you an idea. I like this, how it drives. I feel like this is slightly softer on the road compared to the Kia Sorento. One little thing with this, the visibility is not the best here. I feel like the side windows is kind of like smaller and shrunk compared to the Sorento, which are slightly bigger. That's one thing with this, visibility. Everything else is very much the same. They both have that passenger talk, so you don't have to raise your voice if you want to talk to someone into the second row. Sorento offers that, even though you might use that more often in the Sorento because it has 3 rows. In here you have the same thing. You also have the quiet mode. These two are literally almost the same. The differences are more so when you drive them. One, you notice this doesn't have the same power output, but it goes. The engine does a really good job. It doesn't rev as high, and it shifts quickly. They both use the same transmission, so to even bother talking about performance in this, it's kind of weird because it's exactly the same. It's like taking 2 cars with the same name and just complaining one for the other. Honestly, it's such a confusing thing to do, and I hate when brands do that. They use the same thing. Yeah, you could say the same with Audi and Volkswagen. Well, they use the same, but they don't make the same horsepower most of the time. Like the Arteon versus the Audi A5. That's one example. They probably use the exact same engine in both vehicles. And it's the same scenario in here. What I do love about this Sorento, in my opinion, is just the design overall. The design on the exterior. The interior, I kind of like the Santa Fe a little bit more than this. But the exterior of the Kia Sorento, and I think the guys on Instagram voted for it when I posted, and majority voted for the Sorento. I think the only reason people go for the Santa Fe is the fact that they don't need a third row, and they might just go for the base model for this. That's the only reason. Both offer front-wheel drive options. Both offer detuned engines that make less horsepower. You can get a 181 horsepower engine. You can get a front-wheel drive in this. You can get a front-wheel drive for the Hyundai Santa Fe. I just don't understand the reason behind these two vehicles. I just don't get it, what they're trying to do with this. In my opinion, one is going to outsell the other one, and that's bad marketing. I hope not. They're both great vehicles. With that in mind, thanks for watching. As always, don't forget to check out Aurora Hyundai. Special thanks goes to them for allowing me to borrow the Santa Fe. And let me know your thoughts about this. Stay safe. Cheers.